A blade can end a life once, but a toxic tongue can wound a soul for a lifetime, even for lifetimes beyond this one. I've always believed that we don't need sharp weapons to hurt each other. Just a misplaced word, a false accusation, and suffering ripples out like ink spilled on water. Totam, a courtesan of both grace and beauty, was brought home to Chutunjai to be his rightful wife. To the world, it may have seemed like a dream come true. But to one who's walked the path of stillness, I know that not all unions begin in blessing. Some meetings are karmic crossings from past lives, arriving to repay, to learn, to complete what was left unsettled. From the moment she entered the Chu household, Totam bore countless humiliations for her humble origins. Banished to cold storerooms, scolded before guests, left kneeling in the rain. And within her, a vow was born, not of spiritual devotion, but of silent resentment. Her gentle words hid needle-like edges. Her bowed head masked a chill few could sense. I don't entirely fault her. Who among us hasn't once been hurt and wished to blame? But in time, we must learn. Pain not transformed becomes a blade that turns inward. And in Totam's case, her sweet words slowly became the thread that led her into a tragedy unforeseen. I often remind my students, verbal karma begins not when we curse, but when we speak from a place of subtle anger, disguised as righteousness. And from there, the mouth becomes a blade, tucked quietly behind what appears to be an innocent smile. Some people don't wield swords or raise fists, yet they can wound more deeply than any blade. They are the ones who master the weapon of words. Totam once endured silently, humiliated, ignored, yet she still managed to smile. But from those very wounds she learned. Silence only brings more pain, but words, they could make others pay. From a scorned daughter-in-law, she slowly used words as her ladder, one whisper at a time, to climb to power. No shouting, no open defiance, just the right word at the right time to the right person. A gentle compliment before her husband, a subtle remark among the servants, a quiet sigh while serving tea to her mother-in-law. Each like an invisible needle, stitching a web of suggestion across the minds of all who listened. I've taught my students there are two kinds of sharp minds, those who cut like a blade, and those who speak soft as silk, yet hide knives behind their words. Totam was the latter. She didn't distract, she planted seeds of doubt, letting others dig their own graves of suspicion. When she accidentally murmured rumors of the old patriarch's death at the market, the crowd took over from there. Words, like ink and water, spread gently, but irreversibly. While the whispers grew louder, Madame Chu, once the Iron Matriarch, could no longer bear the weight of rumor. She hung herself in silence. No one saw Totam holding a knife, yet the result cut just as deep. What broke my heart wasn't the old woman's death, but how Totam stood behind the white mourning curtain, shoulders shaking as if in grief, lips curling in the faintest smile. I understood then this was no longer the pain of someone wronged, but the satisfaction of an ego that had taken revenge. But karma does not end with one death. Every poisonous word, if not met with sincere repentance, becomes karma, circling back with quiet persistence. A wise teacher once told me, "Karma never knocks when you're ready, but always arrives exactly when it's needed." I didn't truly understand those words until I heard the story of Totem's child, a soul born into this world, carrying a silent message from beyond. That child was born without a mouth. No opening, no lips, not a single sound from that tiny body. Only pale, stretched skin and drops of blood seeping from where a mouth should be, as if speaking for a voice that had once been stolen in a life before. That detail sent chills through me, not because of its strangeness, but because it was the clearest manifestation of something very real, the karma of speech. Totem held her child in silent shock. Her husband, Tangkai, who once loved her with all his heart, became quiet and distant. A soul barely born, already burdened by unresolved karma, not from strangers, but from the very blood that gave it life. I knew then this was no punishment, it was a lesson for the mother who once spoke poison, now seeing a child who could not speak, could not defend, only bleed in silence. I've heard many ask, what harm could a few harsh words really do? Just letting off steam, right? But the answer may be a child born without a voice, a mother haunted each night by her child's hollow gaze, a mirror of the karmic echoes she once created. Karma doesn't arrive the way we expect. It doesn't scream or pound its fist demanding payment. It comes silently, like that child, and yet it shakes the soul to its core. For there is nothing more terrifying than the silence of a wronged spirit. Totem began searching for the reason, but I believe, in the very moment she held that child close, she already knew half the truth. It was my own mouth that shaped this voiceless form.
When a person reaches the depths of suffering, they either fall deeper into hatred or begin to turn inward, searching for a way out. And Totem, haunted night after night by her silent child's gaze, found her way to Van'an Monastery, where the mists kiss the forest and a blind monk is said to see across 3 lifetimes. She did not come to seek fortune, nor blessings. She came for one reason only, to understand why. When the monk handed her an old brass mirror and said, "You are not here to save the child, you are here to save yourself," I knew her turning point had arrived. In the swirling mist of the mirror, Totem saw a past life, a beautiful concubine with a venomous tongue, who once used cruel words to drive the noble wife to a sorrowful death. That noble wife was now her mother-in-law, Madame Chu, whom she had driven to hang herself. I believe when the soul meets its own karma, no one needs to judge. It hurts so deeply, the heart cannot lie to itself. Some say, past lives are behind us, why bother? But karma doesn't measure time. It only asks whether the heart is honest enough to acknowledge its wrongs. In that moment, Totem was no longer the scheming daughter-in-law. She was a soul witnessing her sins written in blood across time. The voiceless child was not a tragedy. It was a verdict from a past life, the embodiment of a stolen voice and a buried honor. And though she held all of House Chu in her grasp, there was nowhere she could hide from the mirror of karma within her own heart. The monk spoke just one sentence. Karmic speech can only be repaid through sincere repentance. I fell silent when I heard that, Because perhaps in one of our countless lives, each of us has hurt someone with our words. But not everyone dares to face that karma, and fewer still have the courage to atone with true action.
Some drops of blood don't come from being cut by another, but from our own conscience slicing us from within. On the final night before karma could be released, Do Tam knelt before Madame Chu's ancestral altar, lit a single stick of incense, and whispered her repentance. She no longer defended herself, no longer begged for forgiveness. She simply owned her wrongs, with a heart hardened by years of scheming, now softened in surrender. She simply owned her wrongs, with a heart hardened by years of scheming, now softened in surrender. I accept my karma. In this life, I was not a dutiful daughter-in-law. In a past life, a jealous concubine who harmed with venomous words. In this life, let me repay. Then she took a small blade, and in that moment, severed the very tongue that once spoke injustice. Blood flowed like a stream. No one witnessed it, only a dim lamp, a strip of white silk, and a final silent prayer of atonement. When I heard this part, chills ran through me. As the sutras say, when the heart is sincere, the Dharma responds. The moment she placed her severed tongue upon the altar, the child's room echoed with her first cry. To most, just a baby's cry. But to those who've lost faith in redemption, it was a door opening to liberation. The child opened his mouth, a real one. That soft sound struck like a temple bell deep in the forest. Do Tam collapsed into her husband's arms. No more blood on her lips, only the faintest peaceful smile. Her death was not bitter like Madame Chu's, but a final letting go, like a lotus blooming late in the coldest season. I won't claim her karma was fully cleared, but I believe that cry was proof of one brave step back onto the path. Not everyone dares to offer a piece of their own body to atone for a past life's mistake. 20 years later, that child grew wise and kind and visited Vung An Temple every day, offering incense for his mother's soul. He didn't pray for fame or wealth, only for his mother's release from the wheel of rebirth. In the temple's main hall, one can still read the couplet he inscribed. The mouth bursts fire. Karma turns the wheel. Heaven forgets no one. One good thought, one return to compassion, brightens all three lives. When I read that, my heart felt quiet. A blade may kill the body, but a word can pierce the soul. So never take lightly what slips from your lips, for it may be your own soul that pays the price first.